we're going to talk about the World Series. We're going to send the MLB season off into the sunset, put that to bed. The World Series champions are the LA Dodgers. They won in Game 5 last night over the New York Yankees in historic fashion because they came from behind from a 5-run deficit, which was the biggest comeback in the clinching game of a World Series ever. So history on both sides of the World Series, because that Freddie Freeman walk-off grand slam in Game 1 was also history-making as well. So great to see for the Dodgers. If you're a Red Sox fan, you probably like seeing the Yankees go down in this kind of fashion because on the other side of it especially, I think the Yankees also made history as potentially the worst defensive inning in World Series or playoff baseball ever. That was really awful. The top of the 5th, Cole had been pitching a no-hitter, and then just a nightmare 5th inning for the Yankees. Aaron Judge drops a fly ball. Anthony Volpe spiked a throw into the dirt, and then Garrett Cole didn't cover first on a slow roller down the line.
Yeah,
and that was really kind of the beginning of the end for them.
Yeah, for Judge, that being the first error of this season for him, that's when you know things are going to be going down. When you're getting your firsts in the World Series in a Game 5, your first error, and that is the kind of thing that led to that snowball effect of what went down in that inning where it basically just imploded in front of them.
Yeah, definitely. I think just beyond that, what are really your biggest takeaways from this series? Because for me, obviously, like I think getting that grand slam in Game 1 was huge, especially for the Dodgers, because then they were able to conserve their bullpen in Game 4 when they clearly weren't, it seemed like they weren't going to be able to make a comeback there. And then they definitely needed their bullpen for Game 5. What were your biggest takeaways from the series?
I mean, you mentioned Freddie Freeman in that grand slam, but watching him go back to back to back to back in games of home runs, 4 straight, which is the first time that's ever been done in World Series history. I mean, come on, that's just so cool to see. The stories don't write themselves better, especially a guy who is branded himself so well as this really human player as well, where he has a son there, he's hugging his dad, people are rallying behind him. His story, I think, just kind of captured the hearts of baseball fans and beyond, and just seeing the success that he had as he lifted up that MVP trophy at the end too. It felt really fitting for him as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, if you're not familiar with Freddie's story, obviously he was struggling with the ankle injury, but beyond that, also his son was struggling with some health issues earlier in that season. So to be able to end his season on this kind of note, I know probably means a lot to him and means a lot to his family. I think one of my biggest takeaways is just when you look at the two teams, the Dodgers have always been capitalizing on teams' mistakes this entire season. And the New York Yankees weren't going to be able to get away with that 5th inning. I mean, maybe that's an inning that you can kind of get away with during the regular season when it's 1 game out of 162, but you can't get away with that in a potential clinching game of a World Series. And sure enough, the Dodgers obviously, made the most of those errors, and they scored 5 unearned runs, which is really just unheard of, truly, in a World Series game. But, I know, obviously, Garrett Cole, it's tough because he didn't cover first base when he needed to on that roller down the first baseline. But I also was just thinking for him, like, I thought it was actually a pretty tough performance to come back out after that 5th inning and nearly pitch 2 more innings and really kind of keep his team in it after what was that really tough inning. It was a great performance from him, but definitely not enough for the Yankees. And Mookie Betts, it's exciting for, obviously, I think it's disappointing for Red Sox fans to see Mookie Betts.
It's just one of those things, and it's a dagger every time you see him do well. You love seeing the success out of him because he's just still beloved even when the cards were dealt the way they were. But, seeing him get his 2nd World Series ring in LA and
he clinched it with that sac fly on top of that.
He's the reason why they got that one there.
He's the reason why they got it. I thought, the last out too was pretty interesting as well, because they are striking out Alex Verdugo to make the final out. So kind of interesting as well, because obviously Mookie Betts goes off as like this beloved character in Red Sox history, and Alex Verdugo has, a lot of mixed emotions
for sure
surrounding him around Red Sox Nation. So kind of interesting to see how that all went down. But I think something else that stuck out to me about this World Series, especially when you listen to a lot of the players talk about their post-game or talk in their post-game interviews, was they all referenced their 2020 World Series win. And a lot of them mentioned the fact, like, they said, like, no, that was still a real World Series win. Like, everybody had the same playing field. We were the clear winners in that. But at the same time, I was thinking, like, if they truly felt that, they wouldn't continue to be bringing it up.
Right.
And beyond that, they didn't have really the opportunity to celebrate the way that they wanted to. They didn't get a parade. They didn't even get to like do the champagne showers in the locker room. There was none of that during that season. So it's nice to see them finally get rings that they can consider real and that the entire nation can consider real as well, even though a lot of us probably thought they were real before. But, now there's no questioning it.
Yeah, it's like when people reference the NBA bubble, and I always think back to that. Everyone kind of was like, that wasn't real. It was kind of a fever dream, I think, for a lot of NBA fans. Kind of the same thing, putting a little asterisk on all of 2020 in the sports world. Yes, they did win that. It is valid 100%, but this one seems to feel different for all the players as they've been reacting to it as well.
Yeah, and I think something too that a lot of or what I've seen a lot of on my stories, at least on Instagram, is people posting like, "Oh, big surprise! The Dodgers won the World Series after spending over $1 billion this offseason on the payroll." And I think like when you look at it as well, I don't know. I mean, I do feel like the Dodgers actually kind of had to overcome some things throughout this series. Like you had to overcome injuries to Mookie Betts, and which was like back in, I think, what was that? It was back in June, as well as an injury to Yamamoto, and then Glass now obviously ruled out for October.
Shohei, even just this last World Series.
Yeah, exactly. And so it wasn't necessarily like a walk in the park for them. Yes, they did have a ton of star talent, but beyond that too, when you see, I mean, if World Series were won based off of payroll, the Mets would have won several World Series at this point. And you do see, like, as well, a lot of the teams that do end up making it to the World Series are on the upper ends of the payroll. But a lot about baseball is really getting hot at the right time. And you saw that last year with Arizona. And if you're not hot at the right time, you're not going to win. And the Dodgers were consistent throughout the season, and they still had it during the World Series.
I think it's one thing to say, yes, the Dodgers are one of the most valuable and richest franchises in MLB, but then when you look across and you see it's against the Yankees and you say, okay, these are the two top when you look at money. And I saw something earlier today that I got a good laugh about. It was like, I think the Moneyball effect is over, where the Jonah Hill isn't going to be going out and scraping together this team anymore of these misfits and really calculating it. It's the teams who are spending the most to get these franchise-changing players like an Aaron Judge, like a Shohei Ohtani. Those are the names. Mookie Betts, for example. You pay the big money, and they're going to respond accordingly.
Yeah. Speaking of paying the big money, where does Shohei Ohtani rank now, do you think, in the list of all-time greats?
So I think it's inevitable. He's going to go down as one of the greatest players to ever play the game. I think this season was interesting for him, though, too, just because we didn't even see him pitch. He did so much just in terms of batting, getting that 50-50 club, more than 50 home runs, more than 50 stolen bases, breaking just about any record that you might see. And that's only half of his game. He's going to be pitching again next year. He was still recovering from that surgery that he had last offseason. And again, he only went 2 of 19 in this World Series. He didn't have his best performance, but it's kind of like, oh, you got your name on the group project and you got the A. No, he got them there to begin with. His performance throughout the entire regular season is what helped the Dodgers get to that World Series in the end, even if he didn't have his best outing out there.
Yeah, I think what you really need to think of this as is like Shohei Ohtani building his resume. When you look at Shohei Ohtani right now as an athlete, I think it's pretty obvious he's going to go down as one of the best baseball players to play this sport, but right now he's still building that resume, especially after his time with the Angels. But clearly, like, he's a unicorn in the game of baseball, right? Like you said, he only played half his game this season. And what I think is so impressive about Shohei, and what I've said on this podcast in the past, is that like he's making history doing things that typically he doesn't even make history doing. Like he makes history by being a two-way player and being so good at doing both. But this season he made history just for his performances at the plate. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's what makes Shohei Ohtani so special. But yeah, I mean, he is doing things athletically right now that have never been done before, and I think he sits at the top. And right now, like, the game of baseball is the hardest to play than it's ever been in the past. Just when you look at all the advancements in technology and everything that's been improving, like, hitting a baseball right now is nearly impossible,
Yeah.
and it's only getting harder. And the fact that he's doing what he is extremely impressive.
I think another thing to add too, we mentioned some of the injury problems that he's dealt with over the past year plus, but he's had a lot of other distractions. Let's not forget, his agent and the gambling situation that he had to kind of, block out the noise around that. He still stayed focused throughout everything. And, just even joining a new team for the first time, granted, it was just across town in LA. It wasn't the biggest move for him to kind of uproot, but yeah, it's a change to get used to a new franchise, new organization, and it seems like he handled it as perfectly as anyone really could.
No, I feel like he's just a model citizen, honestly. Like, what's the name of it? Is his dog's name Echo? I think his dog's name might be Echo. Hopefully,
it's a very cute puppy.
Maybe we can fact check it. But when he had his dog throw out the first pitch at one of the Dodgers games, I was like, this is like the model human.
And he got married this year as well. So a lot of things going on.
Not only is he the model baseball player, he's just like the model human being. I think one other topic I wanted to touch on was Walker Buehler, who pitched the ninth only on one day of rest after starting Game 3 less than 2 years removed from his second Tommy John surgery. And I think too, like, this goes back to the fact, like, was this guaranteed for the Dodgers? And it's like, Walker Buehler was a pitcher that wasn't even guaranteed to make this postseason roster. Like, he did not have a good regular season, but pitched 5 shutout innings in Game 3, and then 2 days later had the final 3 outs to clinch the championship. So
throwing heaters too, 92 getting up there as well. Like, they were really rallying behind him, and it seemed like a really well-earned final out for him to get that one to clinch this World Series.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just like, I'm really happy about this World Series too. Like, I remember in the World Series past, I haven't necessarily had the same interest that I had in it this year, and I think it was because the games were really good.
Yeah,
they kept your attention, and I think especially after Game 1 when you saw Freddie Freeman walk it off with that grand slam, you realized that, I don't know, nothing's really guaranteed in this series. And I actually turned the game on in the 5th inning. I got home last night in the 5th inning, turned the game on, and I see Freddie Freeman at the plate with 2 outs and the bases loaded. And I'm like, ooh, this could be it. This could be it.
See, I'm going to admit, I was the opposite. I saw that they were down 5-0, and I turned it back to more NBA.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, shoot, I see what's going on. Let me check it out. But no, it was definitely a good series. And honestly, from a Boston perspective, you just like to see the Yankees lose, I think, as well.
Definitely. Always like to see the Yankees lose.